Hello everyone, welcome back. So in this session we are going to see the basic structure of the page object model that got created default while we were installing the webDriverIO. So if you have watched my first session on the webDriverIO, you would have seen that we have selected the page object model, the page object model sample code to download actually. So where actually once the installation was completed, the webDriverIO gave me this particular template where it was like under test there was a POM folder, under that there was a page object model specs. So today we are going to understand what is this basic page object model and then how to run this test. Then in our upcoming sessions we will try to extend this particular page object model and create a framework by using different other framework components. But today this is just a starting page of what is page object model and how the webDriverIO is dealing with. So let's get started. So if you see that there is a page object model, and we know this page object model is nothing but it holds all the pages, the elements and the actions. So let's say that there is a login page. Now in the login page, what are the elements, what are the actions? So the elements could be like your username, password, sign in button. So these are the elements. Actions are basically doing a valid login, entering some value, clicking on the sign in button, or the steps. What is the step? So having a login functionality. So if you see the same structure actually the webDriverIO has done here. If you see this one under page object model, there is a login.page.ts. You can give any name. Okay, just for a standard, this is basically your screen name, and this is page means it is the page object. .ts is the extension. So if you see here, so there is a page class as well. I'll show you that in a moment. But if you see here, so there is a class I have created, or it has been created a login page class from this particular file, and here you can see these are the elements. Okay, so the elements are not exactly treated as a driver.find element, and as we have discussed in our previous session, this dollar represent the browser.find element. So this is a short form notation. So here we are not creating any variable, rather than we are creating a getter method actually. So these get methods are very easy to use it in any of our framework. Okay, so you can see that there is a get. Get is basically, it's a syntax where you are not use any method that don't have any parameters, that is treated as get. Okay, so get input username. Now this is a naming convention. Input because it's a text box, username because this text box is a username text box. That's how it is renamed. You can even keep it as a txt. So like in my notation, I keep it as a text, and then you can give username. Anyway, you can note it is there is no problem, but then whatever standard you are using, that should be maintained throughout your framework, these naming conventions. Okay, so like that it is maintained. Now return, because it's a get method, this method should return some value, right? That is nothing but the locator of your username. The same thing, there is a password, and this is the locator strategy for your password field. And because the submit button is a button, and that's why it is mentioned as btn. Okay, and then this is the locator for that. Now I will show you that the page that it is referring. So this is basically the internet.heroku.app.com. So it's a sample static application which webDriverIO taken as a demo. Okay, so as you can see that this is the demo application which the webDriverIO took. So if I go and inspect this particular username field, you can see there is the ID as username. And if you go to this login, and how did it represent, you can see button type submit. So if you go here, this is the button. This is nothing but the button actually. In that the type is submit, right? So that is what it is mentioned here. And for the locator strategies, we have already extensively discussed in our previous session. So you can refer to that. Now these are the elements, right? And as we know, the page object, all the page classes should hold all the screen related elements and the actions also. Let's say some login page will have reset password or change password or maybe remember login. All those actions you can put as a method wise as well. Now login method, this does accept two different parameters, right, like your username and password. So that's how we are sending that. And as you can see that this particular method is having get, but here I'm not giving as get because it accepts two parameters. And as simple as that, instead of directly calling this particular variable or the web element, we are calling this method. And you can see this because this is representing the class methods. So this dot input username, now this is a web element, right, and it is a text box, so that's why we are entering some value here. The same thing with password, but for the button submit we are clicking it. So that is how these are the actions and these are the web elements. The same thing, if you go to the secured page, there is nothing much. It's basically you have to identify. So this particular demo repo, it's saying that it's just identifying one particular element and we are verifying whether this element is present or not. So after clicking on this login, after doing this login event, we need to make sure that this particular web element is displayed or not, and that is what we are writing here. If you see that login page dot open, so there is a open method. If you see here, this open method, what exactly this open method does? Now this open is basically calling a super dot open. It means that there is a parent method or there is a parent class which is nothing but page.ts. This has one open method. Now what it does, it accepts a string, okay, and it appends to the existing URL. So this is my base URL. Okay, this base URL can be configured in wdio.conf. I will show you in a moment. And after this, we are keeping a path. So this is a variable which we can use it. Now in this case, if you see that login page, how are we accessing this login page? So this is coming by an import statement. Where is this login page class? This is basically this login dot page. Let's go to this page objects login dot page. That is nothing but here, and it is calling the open method, right? And here if you see that this open method, this is actually my login page open method. Okay, don't get confused. There are two open methods are there. One is in your child class, one is at the parent class. So this child class is calling the parent class, but it is accepting a parameter because my login page is always dealing with this particular URL, right? This is my base URL. Up to here it is the base URL. After that I need to append a login string. That is what we are doing. Now if you go to this, go to definition, the login variable is coming here, and you can see there is a slash login. Let's say that your login page is something like this, login, and it says index. Let's say that this is your login page. Now you have to send that login hyphen or slash index, and that's how it will be appending to your path variable here. Now let's say that you want to go to the settings page. Now you can have a settings page. I'll show you that. So you will say settings.page.ts, and here you will be maintaining the same thing. Let me write that. So here you will be giving this statement, okay, and inside this you will be creating a open method. Now this open method will say return super, okay, super dot open. Now in this, what you are going to send actually, so let's say that the settings page is having the URL as settings actually here. So like this you will be sending. Now here you close this and then you just copy paste to export this one, and I will say settings page, and here I'll do like this, and instead of this login you need to import this one, and you can see quick fix and add import, and you can see this is done. Now what happens whenever you want to like go to that URL, right, the base URL slash settings, what you need to do, Instead of calling the login page, what you need to do, await, and then you need to call that settings page here. Now for that actually you need to do like this, and you say dot open, and you just need to call this one. See, the main benefit of doing is that you don't want to really remember the URLs. Every page will have that URLs set up, and then it is just you need to call that only whenever you want to directly navigate to there. That is the benefit of having this open. So hope you guys understood why this login page dot open, and then what exactly it is doing. Fine, we will see some more benefits of having this page class as well. I'll say you that in a moment. Fine, now let's come back to here. So you have now redirected your what you call login page dot open, and here it is a simple statement, browser.url. If you remember in our samples we did the same thing. So if you go to here, you can see that browser.url. We are just hiding that from our test case here. That is the what you call benefit of having different utility methods there. After that, what we are doing a login method. Now here we are passing this parameter, the username and password, and it is again we are making this login method more dynamic, right? So that we can have different username and password combinations. Once this login method or login action is done, what you have to do, you need to verify whether your login is done or not. And once you send this username and password, right? So let me send that here. Okay, this didn't come, and you can see that here actually this is coming. Now this secure area, we are really handling this one. So if you go down here, you can see there is a flash, something is there, right? Let's go to this, and you can see this flash. Now if I copy this one and come back here to the selectors hub, let's say that, and I will be, and you can see that I'm actually identifying this particular element, not this one. If this element is visible on this screen, it means that my login becomes successful. If not, then there is some issue, because we need to do some kind of validation, right? So that is what we are doing. So expect is nothing but these are the assertion statements. So if you read the webDriverIO documentation, they are using the jest pattern. I will be discussing that in our upcoming sessions. But here expect means I'm expecting this particular element to be existed. And this element should have a text called as you logged into a secured area. Now it is you logged into a secured area. It is coming. It means that it is the login becomes successful. So that is how actually the test case has to be there. Okay, so now as I was telling, so this is a very simple and straightforward page object model where you have 2 to 3 pages are there, and there isn't much what you call your functionalities are written here. But then as we go along creating a framework by using webDriverIO, you will be seeing lot of different methods in each of these classes, or maybe we can use a different demo website and we can deal with that. Fine. Now let me show you one more benefit of having a global page.cs. So this is basically a base page. All of your page objects, whether it is login page, secure page, settings page, or let's say theme page, accounts page, all these pages will be inheriting your page.cs. The main benefit of having a base page, you can write lot of methods okay here, and you can call in this particular what you call in your page object classes actually, so that you don't need to write that method in each of your page object. You are reducing the repetitive method calls. One example is that let's say that you want to print the URL of your web application. Okay, so what is the URL, how to get the URL? So there is a browser API, I'll show you that, and that is nothing but browser dot, okay, I'll do one thing, I'll create one public and I will say get URL, and inside this I will be writing this logic. Now here inside this method I will say get, and if you see that get URL, there is a method actually here. Now I can return this one actually. Okay, in this case what will happen, you know, any page. Let's say that I want to get the login page URL. Okay, so what I can do, instead of writing this get URL in every login page, secure page and settings page, I can directly use only in one place. I can write it and I can access it in any of the login page, secure page or settings page. Let me show you that how we can utilize that. So for this, let me just have handle the promises here. Normally it gives you some kind of error if you don't handle this one. So I'll just make it as async, because anyway no need to make it as public. So here I'm making it as async, and here let's say instead of return, let me just print it. Let's say it would be easy to give this demo. Okay, and I will say await browser.url. Okay, and here I can even give some okay, I can even specify this one. So now what I will do, I don't want to write now in each page. Let's say in my test case, I want to make sure that once the URL is launching, what is the URL actually once the browser is loading here, because it loads the, see this particular statement loads my login page, right? Let me see that if it is really loading that or not. So what I need to do now, see, I don't need to call the page.open. The problem with page.open is that there is no specific URL is loaded. It is the home page, but I'm now going and getting my login page. So I'll say login page.open. Okay, sorry, not open. I'll say get you. See, I have not written the get URL statement, get URL method in my login page. Let me show you that. See, here there is no get URL, but in my page class it is written. That's how I can indirectly get that, because all the page.ts methods can be accessible to any of these page objects. That's how I'm using it. The same thing, once the login method is successful, which URL I'm going, it is the secured URL, right? So here what I can do, await, and I will say that secured page dot get URL. That is how you will be getting. Okay, and I'll do one thing, I'll give some browser.pause so that you can see that browser.pause, and okay, so like that you can do that, or else you can do that instead of printing this here, you can return that. You can even assert here also, like once it is going, let's say that this get URL returns a string. Actually what you can do, you can take this get URL, you can put it inside a expect. So what you can do, expect secure page dot get URL to be equals to whatever that URL you are expecting, or to contains that particular string. That is how also you can do, but for demo purpose I am showing this particular get URL. How do I run now? Let's say that my page objects, everything is set. I have written 2 to 3 test methods as well. Let's say that now I want to run this. So to run that, you will be using the configuration file. So some calls it as a test runner file, configuration file, whatever you call it. Now you see that there are a couple of test runner options are there, which we need to discuss now. And autocompile is nothing but as soon as you edit something and save your file, it will be compiling, so that you can get to know the compilation errors. Okay, now where is the project? You can see under ts.config, tsconfig.json file, what are the different types you have, all these things are mentioned here, so you don't need to worry about that. Now if you come back here, this is where we are specifying all the specs, means the list of test files, whatever test cases we have. So I can comment here, I can have multiple test cases as well here. See, at this moment I have only one example.e2e.test, that is what I'm mentioning. Let's say that you have 5 different TS files are there under this spec. No need to worry, this regular expression will take care of that. Okay, so all the test cases that is present in the inside the specs will be executed. If you want to, let's say that out of these 5 test cases, let's say that 2 test cases you want to exclude, maybe your application is having some issue, or maybe you have not completed yet. Okay, all these things you can exclude here. So those test cases are not considered while running. Fine, let's see some more options here. Max instances, this is basically when you want to run in multiple browsers or in parallel. We will see that in later. Capabilities. Now what is capabilities? This basically says in what browser type you want to run it. At this moment I'm saying that run it in Chrome, and if I want to run in parallel, so out of this 10, 5 instances you take the Chrome browser. Maybe I can have an array. So you can see, so these capabilities are an array actually. So I can even specify here colon, and I can specify another capabilities as well. We will again discuss those things in our upcoming session, so don't worry about that. At this moment I'm just saying that run it in Chrome browser, and there are like a couple of options. We will discuss that later point of time. Base URL, I just wanted to mention this one. Sometimes what happens, let's say that you don't want to hard code this particular URL actually. Okay, instead of that, what you can do, you can utilize this base URL. Okay, let's say that if I can show you that as well. Let's say that I want to specify this one, so I can control C, and instead of this local host I can mention this one as well. What will happen, so whenever you are doing browser.url, right, you don't need to specify this one. For an instance, you can say like this, browser.url, and inside this you can just specify like this. Okay, like this, and you can take this path also. So I'll show you that. Okay, and you can just do like this, and you make it as a return, and instead of this you can mention like this. Now what will happen, see, this is a static, right? Sometimes what happens, let's say you are running on your QA environment, staging environment, pre-prod or prod, so you can't make this particular string as static, right? Because you have to come back to this particular code and you have to change it. So we have to make it as dynamic. So what we can do, we can put a condition actually here. So there are certain things that you can really prepare it, and based on QA, staging, pre-prod, you can change this URL actually, so that there is no impact to your framework actually. You don't really need to change here anything. Directly you can just change anything that is coming into this base URL. Okay, fine then. So that is the use case of the base URL, or else you are free to use as the default it was giving. Let's see first if this is working fine or not. Okay, so we understood where to specify our specs and what are the different components of this, what browsers we need to specify here, all these things. And now the question comes, what is the Chrome driver? So you don't need to worry about that. That's where actually the services is taking care of that. So if I do this services, you can see there is a service Chrome driver. So the Chrome driver, if the Chrome driver is changing or something, it will take care of that automatically. Let's say that you are on a latest version of your Chrome browser, but the Chrome driver is not updated. What you can do, a quick solution is that if you come back to here, you can see the Chrome driver version we have specified. Let's say that tomorrow your Chrome browser is 110 and it is not downloading this 110 version of the Chrome driver. You can come back here, change this version to the latest version, and you can say npm run install. It will install all of your these updated packages and you should be good to go. Fine, so those are the basic configurations you need to know. The more details we will be digging down as we go further. Fine, so now we understood the page object model, how this demo repo is really handled. Now is the time to run this particular test and make sure that it is working fine or not. So for this, what I'm going to do, I'll go to the command line or control tilt, and here it is coming. I'll just clear for now. Okay, and here now I will say npm, sorry, so let me close this, npm run wdio, and you guys should be knowing from where I'm getting this command. This is coming from package.json. You can see this one, this script I'm running. Let's enter and see. Okay, you know, the problem is that we have included this index actually. That's why it is not working. No need to worry about that. I will do a control C. Let's go to our page, login page, and this URL is incorrect. I need to say login only. Now it should work. And as you can see, everything is fine. Now let's see those get URLs really printed it or not. So for this, if I go bit down, you can see that secure page, and before to this it should have been given the login also somewhere. Let me, yeah, you can see here. So this is the page URL which came from this actually, the get URL, okay, from the page class. So that is how actually you can run your page object and the test cases. Hope this gives you an idea about the basic page object model in webDriverIO. But in our upcoming sessions, we will see how are the actions, the element actions like the click event, send keys, what are the different other options are there. And then also we will see certain browser APIs like getting the URL, getting the page source, and all other things. So stay tuned and do subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.